I am here today with author Nikki Miller. She is the author of the newly released book, Change of Heart, Never Say Never. Nikki has such an incredible story. I can't wait for you guys to hear from her today. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about your book?
Well, first, thank you for having me, Allie. About the book, it is actually, I would say, actually a film because I wrote it as a screenplay and turned it into the novel Change of Heart, Never Say Never. And so it's regarding it's actually a fictional story, but it's based on true events that happened in my life when I was young. I grew up seeing, grew up hearing, and then was a victim of. And so I took a family, like I say, it's a fiction story, but involved true events. Took an African-American family, and you have this man who hates his dad because of what he saw as a young boy. And he takes that anger into his own family as he's older, and that kind of plays a tool in a down spiral fall with his own family. And at that moment and during that time, he makes a haste decision to take this job that he shouldn't have taken in the first place to satisfy his flesh. He takes this opportunity, and then in the midst of taking that opportunity, going out of state, something happens to one of his children. That's a tragedy. And so that film, that screenplay was developed out of something that I saw back in 2013, which I would get into. But in a nutshell, the story is about forgiveness, fatherhood, and it's going to bring awareness to child sexual abuse. That's what it's about.
And Nikki, why don't you tell us the background, why you put pen to paper for the screenplay first, but then now the book. What's the inspiration behind it?
The inspiration behind it actually started in 2013 when I was watching the news one evening. There was multiple young men being arrested for all kinds of things, but this particular young man was arrested, a young African-American young man in his late teens or early 20s. He was arrested for rape. And I started thinking, I'm like, why was he arrested for rape? What moved him to do that? We know, being a Christian, that the enemy causes things and drives things. So we know he did that, but, there was something that drove him to commit rape. And so I started thinking, I'm like, well, did that happen to him? And maybe, he didn't tell anyone, or, he maybe told somebody and, the right steps wasn't taken for the healing process for him. And I started thinking about that. And then I thought about myself. Well, if I myself had not had an encounter with God back when I did, that I could have been the same way because I was molested as a little girl by family members. And thank God that everything is good now. That's been dealt with. But, I started thinking, where would I be if I had not encountered God? I could have been an offender. I could have been depressed. I could have had suicidal thoughts. And so I started figuring that out. And I'm like, Lord, how can I help this young man? I know I can't help what he, help him in particular. And it doesn't excuse what he did. I don't excuse that at all. But it's how can I help? So I left it there on the back burner. Forgot I had asked God that, how I could help. And then I found myself writing some months down the road. And I'm like, I was writing, I'm like, well, this kind of looks at my life, things that I've heard, things that I've seen growing up, and not so particular in my own family, but certain things were just what I've seen outside and inside the church. And then I started, thinking, I'm like, well, you got me using a boy for the sexual abuse, bringing awareness to that. It's not me. And I started thinking, I'm like, this must be the story to help this young man. But I still had no idea. I still had no clue. And I started asking God, I'm like, God, why did you give me this particular story this particular story, and I would ask a few months, every so down the road, if I'm starting to write, I would ask, why this story? And it wasn't told to me until in 2017 when I went to a retreat that my church gives, and I forgave the family members that abused me. I just broke down and started crying. I'm like, I thought I had forgave them a long time ago. I thought I had forgotten about it. It was a long time ago. I was a little girl, and I really thought I had forgotten about it. But after that, forgiving the family members that did this, I went back to my room and started thinking and started, just praying. And during that time, God said, now you're ready. I'm like, what? Now you're ready, he said. Now you're ready to help others to do the same thing. Now you're ready to help heal others. And I'm like, that's why. And he said, that's why I gave you the story. And I'm like, wow. And even from that moment, he was like, you're not done though. He's like, now I want you to tell your parents. I'm 46 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And so after much encouragement, much prayer, it took a few days to have to get the encouragement to tell them. But I ended up, telling my parents, and they were divorced, when I was young. So I have to tell my dad and stepmom, and then my mom and stepdad. And so it was very hard, very, very hard for me. And then after that, he was like, and now you're still not done. Now I want you to set up a foundation, which I'm in the midst of organizing now, called the Healing Hearts Foundation. And so this story is like a movement, actually, and has birthed my mission of helping to heal thousands of hearts globally who's been abused sexually, physically, mentally by storytelling, unique storytelling, mentorship, and inspirational music.
Thank you. That's so wonderful, all that you are doing, and just you are living out your purpose here, and we can clearly see that. And if there was one thing that you wanted to tell your audience about your book specifically, what would that be?
That would be like to really get the book, read it, think about some of the past hurts that you've been through. Because it's not only about bringing awareness to child sexual abuse and, from that past, but it's about really dealing with any past hurt that you're struggling with. You've been there and you've said, I'm never going to give this person, I'm never going to give her, I'm never going to give him. I believe that this book would be a starting point for you to kind of think about that and allow your heart to be open and maybe consider forgiving that person or that offender or whoever it may be that have hurt you in the past. Because again, with God, all things are possible. All things are possible, and we can never say never, because you just never know, what would change that situation. And so that's what I would give, just to open up your heart, be open, and try forgiving. And, it brings about peace. It brings about freedom, because forgiveness is not for the offender of that person. It's for your own sanity. And that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us today. And once again, audience, you can find her book, Change of Heart, Never Say Never. It is available now. You can find it in paperback versions, ebook, and I believe the audio version is in the works as well.
So it's a lot about
it. Cannot wait. You can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Also, I'm on Apple iTunes. Thank you so much, Nikki.